So I got a couple comments actually two comments from people wanting me to explain exposure a bit more, because I wasn't making it clear whether or not it was a good or a bad thing. So hopefully in this video I will discuss exposure and sort of give my final thoughts on it. So let's get to it. So for those of you who haven't watched my other videos and you don't know what exposure compensation is, basically, it's just a way of a client to get you to do work for free, and then they're going to pay you through exposure, i.e. they're going to tag you in the post on Instagram, they're going to give you a shout out on their blog, they're going to mention you in their podcast, whatever it is, they're going to be hopefully exposing you to their demographic. That's what exposure is, and that's how they're going to pay you for the work that you're doing for them. Now, it sounds pretty good because if you work for a big time client, if you work for The Rock and he gave you a shout out, that could be beneficial, or he tagged you in a post, same thing. But there's a lot more that kind of goes into it, and I think you have to really think twice about the benefits exposure can give you. Have you ever directly or indirectly heard from the client the phrase, "This will lead to someone else paying you"? So they can't pay you for your work, but hopefully someone who's watching your video on their channel could hire you, and therefore they could pay you. I'm not attacking them, because it's possible that they could. If they know that a really important person is going to be at this event or is going to be at the gig that you're filming at, then that's a good reason to work for them for exposure. This is what is called warm leads. It's somebody who's definitely going to be at the location, who is in the market for your services, and there's a high possibility that they'll hire you. I wanted to shoot for a pretty small gym, but they confirmed for me that a marketing director at a major sports apparel brand was going to be there. I went to do the shoot. It went really well. I networked, and they put me in touch with this marketing director. And about 2 weeks later, I was filming for that brand. If it falls under coincidence, and what I mean by that is the client just asks you to do the video for free. If, however, it's a situation where you personally know that someone as important is going to be there, then I would just ask the client if you could be put in touch with each other, and that hopefully you can network. And don't forget, the client was bold enough to ask you to do the work for free, so I really wouldn't be afraid to ask for a networking opportunity like this. It's important to know the type of exposure you're going to be getting. Is it an Instagram tag? Is it going to be in a blog post? Is it going to be in print? I would be asking the client how many people are going to be seeing the content. So for example, let's just take, it's going to be, an Instagram tag. The number of followers isn't a good sign of engagement. So then I would ask the client what the engagement rate is, what the demographic is like, what the age range is. You need to start finding out information if it's relevant to you. So if you're going to be working for exposure, that's fine. But are the people who's going to be seeing the content going to be relevant to me or interested in what I do? And this can go for anything else. It can go for the number of website visits. It can go to podcast listeners. It can go to monthly magazine readers. Whatever it is, it will give you a much better idea about what their exposure is really worth. So whilst you're at it, I would be taking note of this demographic information that they're providing you, because this is going to be able to give you an indication of the type of followers that's going to be hopefully following you, or the type of clientele that will be approaching you from this exposure. But then it's important to know and to outline what happens if the exposure isn't met. So this is in their control, because A, they need to actually tag you and mention you in the first place, but B, they need to make sure that they distribute your content correctly and put it in front of as many people as possible. You can have a negotiation with this and say to the client that if you aren't properly exposed, and if there's certain numbers and certain stipulations that aren't met, then they will be billed for the full amount, or for 50% of the amount, or whatever that you choose. But it's good to have a negotiation so they know that exposure is actually worth something. It's not just a word that they can throw out whenever they want. Now, I would say that it is out of your control in terms of the amount of followers that you could be getting and the website visits, because it's an algorithm, who knows what's going to happen. But I would stipulate it between the amount of views or the amount of engagement that it gets. That's a stipulation you could probably negotiate with. So I hate it when a client says, this can be a platform for future work, because I kind of see it as insulting, and I know it's not meant to be, but it's just the way that I see it. A lot of the contents and a lot of the filmmaking world, like, it is on you as a creator to make sure that not only is your work as good as it can be, but that the right people see it, and that you've put in the effort to distribute it in the same way that you've put in the effort to edit it and to film it, etc. So when a client says that, oh, well, we have a platform that we can share your content, it basically suggests that you're not doing it properly in the first place. Now, there are some cases where a single client could probably springboard you to the next level, but in all honesty, it's going to usually just be a brand or, like a business client that's going to contact you, and they aren't going to give you that sort of platform. It will give you a good stepping stone to add to the foundation that you're building, but you're the one that has to make the platform good enough to, be worthy of shouting about. And as I mentioned earlier, unless they can provide quantifiable proof of other content creators or agencies or filmmakers that they've helped through their platform to progress, then you're basically just taking them on their word. And if they're willing to ask you to work for free, their word on this probably doesn't mean much. You might also get contacted by celebrities or influencers or their agents to say that they have someone who can't pay you right now, but they have a huge following on whatever platform it is, and they want to pay you through exposure. X amount of people will see your work. It will be a great opportunity. There might be future work. They'll probably use every sort of example of exposure. And it will usually come from people who are just doing influencer stuff who don't have the time or the want to make videos anymore. Now, if it's a huge celebrity, the Will Smiths, the Dwayne Johnsons of the world, or if it's an influencer or just someone that you really like, you look up to, and you're more than happy to work for free and you would have done it anyway, then absolutely take the gig. If you can get close to them and you could be working sort of with them rather than working for them, that's a great opportunity because you can learn a lot from them. But if it is just any old celebrity that has picked you out of a hat to, hopefully you could do videos for free, then I would think carefully about it. More often than not, you're going to end up doing a lot of work for free, or you'll do some work for free, but then the rest of the work will be very, very badly paid, basically. It's because they have so many people to pick from and you've kind of agreed, so it's then on you, and there is the opportunity to build a relationship, but it's just not really worth it in my mind. I mentioned it in one of my earlier videos, but I did work for a influencer who has 8 figures following on Instagram. They are a huge social media presence in general, and they're like top of the game right now. Just in terms of exposure, it didn't really increase my follower count a lot. I wasn't really approached by other brands. It didn't really do much for me. The video got loads of views, but their demographic just wasn't interested in videography, just wasn't interested in photography. They were interested in the person, the person who was in the video that I made. So after about a week, all the people that did follow me were thinking, well, I'm not really interested in it anymore. So then they just unfollowed me. And some of the bigger brands were already tied up with agencies and filmmakers that they use, and then the smaller brands wanted me to do work for them for free as well. So if I wasn't paid from a brand for doing that video, and if I was just going to count it as exposure, I would conclude that as not very successful, like nothing really happened from it. It worked out for my portfolio because it just looked good. It was a good video regardless of who was in it. But just in terms of exposure, I didn't receive any. So I feel like I've just spent the last 10 minutes or so ranting about exposure and why it's bad, but there is a good side to it. And I think it's important to not only know about the good side, but also how you need to approach clients when they say any sort of a phrase to do with exposure. Now, of course, there are examples of people who have worked for free and it's turned out really well for them. So there's the D-Rocks of this world who worked for Gary Vaynerchuk, or you can get Dwayne Johnson's videographer, or Will Smith's. He has a few videographers. They initially worked for free, but now they're living the high life. But they put in the hours and they worked for free. They gave up their time. They didn't really give it up. They exchanged their time to be around this person and to create content for someone who was wildly popular, and it worked out for them. I worked for a local gym in London, and they gave me a good stepping stone for the foundation that I was building, and it allowed me to have a more diverse portfolio that I could then kind of send out and negotiate with different clients, and that led to more work. And there is a possibility that someone will see the video that you've done for free, but they will think, wow, I really like that. Our business can use that. Let's find out who that was. Let's hire this person. It could happen. It's just something that you need to consider. You have to have thought about it. If it happens, it happens. That's great. But my strong feelings towards it is just don't do a job just for exposure. Do it for yourself, and hopefully anything that comes from exposure is a very positive byproduct. If you don't want to work for exposure and you don't necessarily just want to say no, just educate the client. Just say that what you're doing, like your trade, is how you live. You know, it's how you pay your rent, it's how you pay for food, it's how you pay for the kit, for all the insurances to make the video. You just need to educate the client to let them know that what you do isn't just a hobby, it is your career. And if you are going to work for exposure, just as I said in my video about working for free, you need to put hard limits on things like the amount of time you're going to be filming, the amount of time you're going to be editing. Definitely no weekend work. Don't be hiring kit. Don't be paying for anything out of your own pocket. If you're going to work for free, it needs to be on both ways. Like, don't be spending any money. Keep all of your raw files. Don't be giving them away. Just, again, it's going to be a two-way street if you're working for free. Do it so you can build up your portfolio. They can get some free content. And that's pretty much the length of the exchange. I wouldn't be going too over the top unless you know that something else can come from it. So for example, if you know someone is going to be there who might hire you, or if it's for a client that you really like, or if it's a charity or cause that you care about, just be sensible and just think very carefully about who is asking you, what they're asking you for, and what this can mean for your career. I also realized that I haven't really answered the question that I set out. Is exposure good or bad? I'm going to say that exposure is bad, but, and I'll leave it there. Leave it open to interpretation. So that's it for this video. I want to thank you very much for watching. If you have any experiences with working for clients for free, good or bad, let people know in the comments. And until the next video, which I have no idea when it's going to come out, so just stay tuned for that. Have a good week, have a good month, etc. And I'll see you guys in the next one.